Chapter 1. The Dead Man's Computer. Dead people are terrible at cybersecurity. That sounds insensitive. It probably is. But after 12 years of watching people protect billion-dollar secrets with passwords based on their dogs, birthdays, and favorite football teams, I'd earned the right to be cynical. Senator Daniel Rourke was different. 3 days after someone put a bullet through his chest inside his Georgetown home, I was staring at a forensic copy of his laptop and beginning to suspect the senator had known he was going to die. Mara stood behind me in the operations room while I worked. She'd learned not to ask what I was doing every 30 seconds, which put her ahead of most people I'd worked with. When I finally stopped typing, Mara leaned closer and asked, "You found something?" "I found nothing," I told her. Mara frowned. "And that's something?" For Rourke? Absolutely. The senator had spent 6 months publicly threatening to expose what he'd called an unauthorized influence operation inside the federal government. He never named the agency involved, never identified the officials. 2 days before a scheduled closed-door Senate hearing, someone killed him. Police called it a burglary gone wrong. I found it cute how quickly they came to that conclusion. I turned the laptop toward Mara and explained. Rourke deleted everything sensitive 48 hours before his murder. Not sloppy deletion either. He sanitized the drive, cleared cloud backups, removed encrypted containers, even wiped his printer history. Mara studied the screen. So someone got to him. Maybe, except he left something. I opened a calendar entry from 6 weeks earlier. It contained no location, subject, or description. Only 2 letters. SW. Mara went still. I didn't need to ask why. Selene Ward, she said quietly. Could be. You don't believe it? I believe coincidences are lazy explanations. I closed the laptop and stood. Whatever Rourke was protecting isn't here. He made sure of that. Mara looked toward the photograph of Rourke's Georgetown townhouse pinned beside the case file. Then where is it? I grabbed my jacket. If I knew I was being watched, I wouldn't hide the important stuff anywhere connected to a network. Mara understood immediately. His house. His house, I confirmed. 20 minutes later, we were headed for Georgetown. Neither of us knew someone had already beaten us there. Chapter 2. Offline. Georgetown has always bothered me. Too many expensive houses pretending not to be expensive, too many security systems pretending nobody important resides behind them. Senator Rourke's townhouse fit perfectly. 3 stories of brick, narrow windows, and enough discreet surveillance equipment to make me wonder why a professional burglar would choose it. Mara parked across the street while I studied the house from the passenger seat. She glanced at me and asked, "What are you looking for?" "Anything that doesn't belong." Mara followed my gaze. "And?" "The front camera's dead." She looked toward the entrance. "Police disabled it?" "I checked their report. They didn't touch the system." I pulled up the property network on my tablet. Rourke's security equipment was still online, but one camera had stopped transmitting 27 minutes earlier. Someone was inside. I told Mara, "We have company." Her posture changed immediately. "Can you tell where?" "Not unless whoever's in there connects to Wi-Fi, and I'm guessing our mystery guest isn't checking email." We crossed the street and entered, using the access authorization Carver had arranged. The front hall showed no obvious disturbance. Police evidence markers remained from the murder investigation, but nothing appeared recently moved. Mara whispered, "Where would Rourke hide something?" I looked around. "You're asking the wrong person. I hide things behind encryption. A faint sound came from upstairs. Wood against wood. A drawer closing, maybe? Mara heard it too. She motioned for me to stay behind her as we climbed. She pulled her Glock from her holster and motioned me to be silent. At the top, we found Rourke's study door open. Someone had searched it carefully. Books had been removed and replaced. Desk drawers stood slightly misaligned. A framed photograph rested face down on the carpet. Then another sound came from the bedroom down the hall. Mara moved toward it while I noticed something beneath the senator's desk. A telephone jack. Old-fashioned, analog. Completely disconnected from the home's network. Beside it, scratched into the wood, were 2 letters. SW. Before I could call Mara over, a man stepped from the bedroom carrying a small envelope. As soon as he saw us, he ran. Chapter 3. The Man in the House. The stranger didn't hesitate. He slammed his shoulder into Mara, knocked her against the bedroom doorframe, and sprinted toward the stairs. I moved to block him before common sense reminded me that tackling armed intruders wasn't in my job description. He vaulted the banister instead. We chased him down the stairs and through the kitchen. He overturned a chair just like the movies and burst through the back door with Mara only seconds behind him. I nearly followed before noticing the envelope beneath the chair. He'd dropped whatever he'd come to find. I grabbed it and ran outside. The stranger had reached the fence when Mara closed the distance. He spun around, pulled a handgun, and aimed directly at her. "Mara!" I screamed. Then the man's hand began trembling. His finger was already near the trigger, but suddenly he couldn't seem to move it. His face tightened in agony. The gun fell into the grass as both hands went to his head. He collapsed onto his knees. I stopped near the back steps. Mara didn't. She stared at him with an expression I couldn't understand. Then the pain vanished from the stranger's face. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing slowed. Something about him had changed. Mara saw it too. The man raised his eyes to hers and smiled. "Hello, Mara." She didn't ask his name. She already knew. "You're who Nathaniel refers to as the teacher." "How astute of you," the man replied. I looked between them, trying to understand how Mara could recognize someone she'd never met. The teacher glanced toward the discarded gun. "Restrain him. He won't remain unconscious for long." Mara stepped closer. "Where are you?" "Closer than you think," he said. "Where?" she insisted. The borrowed smile returned. "I'm parked across the street," he said. He looked directly into her eyes. "I'll meet you in front." Then the stranger collapsed. Whatever had been inside him was gone. And she had recognized it. Chapter 4. The Front Door. Mara secured the attacker while I called Carver and requested a cleanup team without explaining why our unconscious suspect had apparently introduced himself as someone else. That conversation could wait. As we entered the house, I held up the envelope he'd dropped. "You recognized him?" "Yes," Mara replied. "You've met him before?" "Not exactly." I stopped. Those two answers don't belong together. Mara looked toward the front door. "I felt him before. His consciousness. I didn't know who it was then." That explanation somehow made things worse. When Mara opened the door, an older man stood on the porch. A dark sedan was parked across the street behind him. Mara froze. The man said nothing. Neither did she. I watched recognition pass between two people who, as far as I knew, had never stood in the same room. Finally, Mara spoke. I wish I could say that it's nice to finally meet you, but after everything that's happened, don't expect my trust just because you saved my life. The man's expression softened. Considering the circumstances, I would expect nothing less. I hated everything about that exchange. He turned and looked at me. Nice to meet you, Ms. Chen. You can call me Evie, I said. My apologies. Don't apologize. Explain how you know my name. A faint smile appeared. You wouldn't believe how often people ask me that. Try me, I replied, purposely sounding saltier than normal. Before he could answer, Mara asked, Why were you following us? I wasn't. His eyes shifted toward the back of the house. I was following the man who just tried to kill you. The humor disappeared from my voice. You knew he was coming here? I suspected. And you didn't warn us? I wasn't certain what he wanted. I raised the envelope. Apparently, this. For the first time, the teacher's composure changed. Barely. But I saw it. He recognized the envelope. Mara noticed too. What is it? The teacher looked toward the street before answering. Not here, he said. Why? We both asked simultaneously. Because the man in the backyard isn't alone. He stepped inside and quietly closed the door. Then he looked at Mara. And the person who sent him may already know you're here. Chapter 5. The Envelope. The teacher's warning changed the room. Mara immediately checked the windows while I returned to Rourke's study with the envelope. The teacher followed, but remained near the doorway, giving me the uncomfortable impression that he'd already seen everything I was about to discover. I placed the envelope on the desk. You know what's inside. I know what Senator Rourke believed was inside, the teacher replied. That's a very annoying distinction. So, I've been told. Mara joined us. Open it, Evie. Inside was a photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed Rourke standing beside a woman outside a restaurant. Her face was turned away from the camera, but dark hair fell across her shoulders. On the back, someone had written a date from 4 months earlier. Mara stared at the woman. Is that Selene? The teacher answered carefully. Possibly. I unfolded the note. Most of it was meaningless without context. Dates, initials, 3 government departments. Then one sentence stood apart. Operation Clean Slate has been authorized. I read it aloud. Mara looked toward the teacher. Have they been eliminating anyone who poses a threat to Meridian's existence? I don't know. That surprised me. You expect us to believe that? I asked. The teacher met my eyes. You should believe very little without evidence, Ms. Chen. It's one of your better qualities. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. It was Carver. His voice sounded urgent. Evie, get Mara out of there. Why? We identified your man. I looked toward the backyard. Carver continued. He's connected to 5 deaths over the last 18 months. Connected how? Every victim had ties to old Meridian personnel. My eyes returned to the note. Carver, we don't think he's alone. A vehicle suddenly accelerated outside. The teacher moved to the window. Mara asked, What is it? He watched the street for a moment. Then he quietly answered. They're making sure that he's finished the job. Chapter 6. The Second Car. The vehicle passed without slowing. A gray sedan. Virginia plates. The windows were blacked out, but ordinary enough to disappear in Washington traffic, which was probably the point. The teacher stepped away from the window. Mara asked him, "You recognize it?" "No," he replied, "but the driver is waiting for his man to come out." I joined them at the window. "You got all that from a car driving past?" I've survived a long time by noticing when people pretend not to look. I hated that I couldn't argue with him. Mara's phone buzzed. She checked the message and said, "Carver's team is 6 minutes out." The teacher immediately headed toward the door. "You're leaving?" Mara asked. "Yes." "You just saved my life." "That doesn't make me safe." Mara blocked his path. "Then give me something. Selene is alive. I know you know her. Help me find her." For the first time, the teacher seemed to study Mara rather than simply look at her. "Have you been trying to reach her?" Mara didn't answer. He already knew. "You're reaching too far," he continued. "Searching for a consciousness among billions is like standing beside an ocean and trying to recognize one drop of water." Mara's expression tightened. "Then teach me another way." The teacher glanced toward me before answering. "That would require trust." I couldn't help myself. "Then we're screwed." He smiled. Another vehicle approached outside. This one slowed. The teacher's expression changed instantly. "Stand away from the windows." Mara moved towards the hallway while I grabbed Rourke's envelope. The sedan stopped, and the rear door opened. Nobody got out. Then our captive screamed from the backyard. It sounded like a trapped animal, more than a human being. Mara ran toward him. The teacher caught her arm. "Don't." She pulled free. "Why?" His eyes remained fixed toward the rear of the house. "Because it's not us he's afraid of." The scream stopped. The teacher lowered his voice. "He's afraid of whoever just arrived." Chapter 7. The Message. The teacher released Mara and moved toward the kitchen. I followed because apparently my survival instinct had become negotiable. Our captive was awake in the backyard, struggling against the restraints. He stared toward the alley beyond the fence. "Get me inside," he shouted. Mara reached him first. "Who sent you?" The man ignored the question. "You don't understand. If they see me talking to you, I'm dead." The teacher remained inside the doorway, deliberately out of sight. I crouched beside the attacker and whispered in a serious tone. "Then talking suddenly sounds like your best option." His eyes found mine. "You can't protect me." "Probably not the sales pitch you were hoping for, but Carver has people coming." I could see recognition in his face when I said Carver's name. It caught me off guard. "Do you know Carver?" I asked. Before he could answer, the gray sedan pulled into view beyond the fence. Our captive stranger went pale. The rear window of the sedan slowly lowered. I half expected a gun to come into view and began to take cover, when instead, a phone flew over the fence and landed in the grass. Then, the sedan accelerated away. Nobody moved until we could no longer hear the car as it got buried beneath the sounds of the rest of the world. I picked up the phone. Only one message filled the screen. Rourke was warned. You have been too. Mara read it over my shoulder. Warned about what? The captive laughed nervously. You think Rourke was murdered because of a scandal? I turned toward him. Wasn't he? No. His eyes shifted toward the teacher standing inside the house. Recognition flashed across his face. Then terror. You! The teacher said nothing. The man backed against the fence and recoiled in fear. Mara noticed. You know him? I don't, but I know what they call him. The man's voice trembled. I looked toward the man that Mara refers to as the teacher. For the first time since he'd appeared, he seemed concerned. The captive swallowed. Rourke wasn't trying to expose a program. He looked at Mara. He was trying to expose a list. Mara asked, What list? The man answered quietly. People inside the government who can be entered. Chapter 8. The List. For a moment, I thought I'd misunderstood him. Mara hadn't. What do you mean, people who can be entered? She asked. The captive looked toward the alley before answering. Targets. People they've tested. Tested how? I asked. He shook his head. I don't know. I get names, locations. Sometimes I'm told to recover something. Sometimes I'm told to make sure someone doesn't talk. Mara's voice became stern and unforgiving. I'm assuming you're talking about people like Rourke. I didn't kill Rourke. I believed him. Not because I trusted him, but because fear had stripped away whatever confidence he'd entered the house with. Behind us, the teacher finally stepped outside. The captive immediately recoiled. The teacher ignored him and looked at Mara. A person with the gift cannot simply enter everyone with equal ease. Some minds resist naturally. Others are vulnerable. I glanced at him. And somebody made a list? Apparently. Mara studied him. You didn't know? No. That answer seemed to disturb him more than anything else we'd learned. Carver's vehicles finally appeared at the end of the alley. The captive saw them and started talking faster. Rourke found names. Judges? Intelligence officers? Military commanders? Members of Congress? I felt my stomach tighten. People in positions that matter, I said, suddenly realizing the full gravity of this mission that I took on. He nodded. Mara asked, Where is this list? I have no idea, is what he told us. I remembered the envelope and pulled out Rourke's photograph. She remembers. Then I noticed something in the restaurant window behind Rourke and the unidentified woman. A reflection. Not of a person, a street sign. I enlarged the image on my phone. The teacher watched me. What? Mara asked. I smiled despite myself. Rourke didn't leave us a photograph. I turned the screen toward her. He left us an address. The teacher studied the image. His expression changed. From what I could tell, the place was familiar to him. Mara seemed to take notice as well. Chapter 9. The Address. I enlarged the photograph until the reflection in the restaurant window became a blur of pixels. Most people would have stopped there. Fortunately, most people hadn't spent years recovering information from images everyone else considered useless. The street sign gave me part of a name, and the awning reflected beside it gave me the rest. Connecticut Avenue, I said. There's a building across from the restaurant. Number 1847. The teacher's reaction was subtle, but I caught it. His eyes moved away from the screen before returning to Mara. You know the address? I asked. The teacher looked at me. I know what used to be there, he stated. Mara stepped closer. And that would be what? A private research foundation. Meridian occasionally used it for meetings. Occasionally? I asked. You make it sound like you were there. I was, he responded rather quickly. That shut me up, which is usually no easy task. Carver's team entered the house behind us. Reed took custody of the attacker while 2 agents secured the property. Mara barely noticed. Her attention remained on the teacher. Was Selene there as well? Mara asked. The teacher nodded. Many times. Mara's voice softened. Take us there. I can't. Can't or won't. The teacher studied her before answering. Mara, if Selene left something there, she didn't leave it for me. She knows I would recognize the location. Rourke's photograph was meant for someone who wouldn't. His eyes shifted toward me. I understood. Me? Someone who would look at a photograph and see information instead of memory, the teacher explained. I hated how much sense that made. Mara looked at the photograph again. Then we go tonight. The teacher shook his head. You go, I don't. Mara started to object, but he continued. There are people who know my face, others who know my presence, and a few who know both. If I walk into that building with you, I may tell them more than you discover. He moved toward the front door, but Mara stopped him with one final question. When will I see you again? The teacher looked at her for a long moment. When you're ready to stop searching for Selene and learn how to find her. Then he left. I watched him disappear down the sidewalk before turning to Mara. Please tell me we're not trusting him. Mara's gaze remained where the teacher had been standing. No. She picked up the photograph. But we're going to 1847 Connecticut Avenue. I sighed and grabbed my bag. Of course we are. And headed for the car.
Chapter 10. The Teacher. Evie Chen does not trust me. Good. Trust given too easily is rarely worth having, and I have lived long enough to know that suspicion has saved more lives than faith ever could. Evie will search for my name, my history, my family. She will find pieces. Some will be true. Others belong to men I stopped being long ago. Mara is different. She recognized me, not my face. Faces are temporary things. She recognized the part of me that has walked beyond the boundaries of my own consciousness, that cannot be disguised from someone who has begun learning how to see. She believes she has only scratched the surface of her gift. She is correct. Selene once stood where Mara stands now. Curious, frightened by what she could do, then frightened by how easily doing it became. I taught her that entering another consciousness is the simplest expression of the gift. Leaving without changing what you find is harder. Finding someone who does not wish to be found is harder still. Mara will learn. She must. Because Selene is alive, and someone else knows it. Senator Rourke discovered enough to make himself dangerous. His murder was not intended merely to silence him. Someone is removing connections, one person at a time, until the path leading to Selene disappears completely. I do not yet know who. That concerns me. There are killers who possess the gift. There are killers who do not need it. Mara must learn to recognize the difference before one of them reaches her. And then there is Nathaniel. His connection is gone, but absence is not always permanence. I know that better than anyone. There was a time when my own path closed. I found a way to open it again. Whether Nathaniel should be given that same opportunity is another matter entirely. Some doors are difficult to open, others are difficult to close. And Nathaniel has already shown us what happens when the wrong man discovers the way in.